Hello, everybody. The band is back. Unfortunately, not totally. So Finch and Mania are both doing school stuff. Yet this show, as it's presented, will always be featured for the big events and all that other good stuff. Courtney did make it today. We will also be having a new addition. Martin McLeod of ThatDota.com, everybody's favorite database. He will be also joining and participating in the show with his own segment. Unfortunately, today we do not have the Beatles. Yet we will continue on with the show to provide you guys information on the upcoming matches for MLG and where to place your rares. Courtney, I love you, man. It's good to see you again.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back, man.
Happy the family's back. But let's jump right into the games. So,
Sure.
First match is going to be in exactly 7 hours from now, Alliance and Speed Gaming. I'll let you have the floor first.
Well, yeah, let's just jump straight into stats. For Speed Gaming and Alliance, recently Alliance have beaten Speed Gaming. I think it was a couple of days ago in the Frag Bite Masters. And even greater than that, like within the last couple of months, I think they've played against each other 6 or so times. And Speed Gaming have managed to win 2 of those. But considering all these MLG games of best of 1, I still think the safest bet here is Alliance, considering Speed Gaming have nothing on Alliance.
I agree with you, and remember, Bone 7 will not be participating in this, or TZ will be taking his place. I think the one thing I look at when I see these things is, so Alliance right now, they have 75% odds, so they're 3-1 favorites. Now, if you look at it, if you have a rare you don't like, I think Speed Gaming is one of the teams I think that can actually beat Alliance. I agree with everything you've said thus far, but in terms of betting, you know my philosophy, right? So if you're getting 3-1 odds and you know the team has a good chance of actually beating them, so I always grade these things. For those of you that have not seen the first show, the way I look at these things is, so Speed Gaming in terms of skill and talent are capable of beating Alliance on any day. Would you agree or would you disagree with that notion?
I would agree, but I mean, you said Arteezy is replacing Bone 7?
Yes, just for this tournament because of some issues that came with the visa and all that.
Okay. So then, what does that mean? Sing Sing is
no. Everything's saying no. I think he is going to offlane. He's going to try his luck at the offlane.
Arteezy is going to come and go offlane.
Yes.
Okay, that'll be interesting. Well, I mean, just given that I understand what you're saying about the odds, like it's 3-1, so you're going to be like tripling your res.
Yep.
But I still think it'll be throwing away 4 res if you bet for Speed Gaming here. Just because it's a LAN event, Alliance are coming in strong. Speed Gaming are fairly new, and now they've also got a substitute. They're coming in and facing these like the biggest team, or probably one of the favorites, right in the beginning. I think Alliance aren't going to mess around. They're not like Navi where they throw the group stages. They're going to come strong and just roll over Speed Gaming.
No, I completely agree. However, like I said, I just think the individual talent is there to actually have a little bit of an upset. Do I personally think it will happen? No, but what I'm saying is from the betting perspective, if you have a rare you don't like, you're getting 3-1 odds on a team that can actually beat Alliance. Not a team that hasn't beaten Alliance, or not a team that, for all intents and purposes, can never beat Alliance. This is a team that has done it and is capable of doing it. So if you have a rare that I think you do not like, or if you're a betting man, I think the 3-1 odds for Speed Gaming, I think that's too much. So I believe Alliance will win the match.
Yeah.
However,
I mean, statistically,
I think the odds are in my favor to place a bet I don't like, and I think Speed is a team that has a decent shot of. I mean, 75-25. I think is, I don't know. I think that's a bit much. As much as I like Alliance, I think that's still, especially in an opening round match. I mean, you haven't even filled out the tournament or anything.
I was just gonna say, like, if you look at it statistically, I said I think 2 out of 6 games Speed Gaming have won against Alliance, which leads them to 33% favorites, or Alliance to 66% favorites. So actually, these odds sort of favor Speed Gaming if you look at it like that.
That's exactly where I was going with it. Absolutely.
That's just on paper, whereas you can still look at it in a sort of relative way and think Alliance are going to take this. But I mean, I suppose it's kind of interesting that we disagree, or like sort of panning
Yeah.
this out now, where we both immediately
Yeah.
contrasting each other.
I mean,
But
I agree with your notion, though, just to make it clear. I'm just talking about from a betting perspective. I think it's within my best interest to bet something I don't like to get something in
yeah,
return, because speed has the ability and the potential, I think, to at least justify that sort of bet.
yeah,
See, we're talking not real money. If this was a real money show, we have a totally different argument. But this is about IP. This is about rares, and I think just based on that alone, I would personally probably drop one on speed.
okay.
All right, so moving on to the next one, we have Liquid versus Pretty Boy Swag, otherwise known as the NA Dota team that came in second to Dignitas at the MLG Full Sail event, which I attended. I'll let you have the floor again.
Well, I've watched quite a lot of Pretty Boy Swag recently, and they're actually, they're not a unknown team. They don't have. It doesn't look like they have their own
Yeah.
logo, or at least on Dota 2 Lounge, they don't have their own logo. I'm not too sure how official they are, but they've got some very good players. They not like a team that you can just roll over. But having said that, Liquid have been looking quite strong lately. They've been beating some pretty fairly well-known teams like EG, Fnatic, VP. But also, Liquids tend to sort of lose against the American teams as well, in the sense that, recently. So this could be quite an interesting game, considering PBS are quite a strong team, and they're not just a rollover team. But I think at the end of the day, I'd be placing my bets on Liquid.
I will agree with you for all the things you obviously mentioned, and I'll tack on to that. So this may seem kind of contrary to what I just said, but so PBS actually did really well at Full Sail. I was very surprised seeing them live. I was really surprised with Jubei. I think he's going to be a pretty good American talent going into the future. If F3 was financially supported by certain sponsors in the U.S., they would be a team I would seriously consider, because I think they're good. I think they're very capable of beating Liquid. However, despite the fact that Liquid doesn't succeed against some of the American teams as much as you would like or think, I will always throw the land factor in the middle. Look at the experience you have on Liquid, from TIs to DreamHacks to the rest.
Yeah.
They only have the Full Sail event, which had a total of like maybe 20 people actually show up. And it was a very, 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 very small event, and it was a professional event. I would definitely throw on more percentages. Instead of 18%, I'll give him 8%. I'll add the 10% for the land factor, because if you really think about it, you're going to have to beat one of the... These guys were Fire, then Complexity, now Liquid. They've been around the block. Boba was on EG for TI2. You're talking about major experience going on the way of the vets, and you're talking about one land in total on the way of PBS. I don't think they have a shot to even.
It is a best of one though. And
no. But I don't. Yeah, but I don't think. I think the moment's going to be too much. I don't even think they have a shot. And even with these odds, I wouldn't even bet on PBS for the difference that, Speed Gaming, I feel, has a skill individually and are capable enough to take games off of Alliance, or a series off of Alliance. I don't think PBS can take a series, and to be honest, in a best of one, though on any given Sunday you can say that anyone has a chance, I don't see them even coming close in this matchup. I think they're going to get stormed, but I think it's the nerves, and it's not that it's their fault, and it's not that they're not good. That's why I prefaced everything I said with exactly how I felt about them. I just feel like Liquid are just too veteran, they're too savvy, they're too good to allow PBS to come in there and steal a game like that off rip. So
okay,
I
fair enough.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you on the Liquid.
I think at least at the end of the day, we both go with Liquid.
Yeah, for certain. But would you even prop bet it? Like, if you had something you didn't like, would you try to just for the odds? Because I wouldn't either. I feel like that's a loss all the way.
I really think I might. Like, exactly what you're saying for the previous game, I really think I might. Because, if you just look at the odds, 18 to 82, one ray gets you almost 6 rays if you bet on PBS.
But you think, who's more likely to win? Speed or PBS? Against their counterparts?
Speed, but
Okay.
the obvious
Okay.
factor there is the ratio difference. Speed of 24, whereas
Yeah,
PBS
yeah,
of
yeah,
8.
yeah. Okay. I mean, that's interesting. So then technically you will prop bet it like I did in the first one. So you would kind of
Yeah.
err on maybe PBS. Not that they're
It
like
depends.
they're
If
winning.
PBS go down a bit more, if it goes down to say 15 or 13%, somewhere around
Okay,
there,
so anything
then
for 15 and under. Okay, I mean, I get that. That was actually the basis for my last one because I felt 75-25 was way too much. So that's actually pretty good. So we're moving
yeah.
forward onto Navi versus EG. Courtney?
Well, this is going to be an interesting game. This is pretty much going to come down to who wants to throw the hardest. Like
Oh,
EG, everyone knows, they
yeah.
amazing throwers, but Navi are like professional throwers. They can also throw really really well. And considering it's a group stage, everyone knows Navi doesn't take stages very seriously. They'll probably pick some
Yes.
random ass draft and I think they just like testing the field. They know this is a less important game.
Yeah.
They just like to see what's going on. They'll pick something crazy, try to throw the hardest, but EG might be able to throw harder than them. It's literally just who comes down to throwing it the hardest. And I think
It's
considering Navi are
70-30 though.
professional throwers,
Would you prop bet
yeah,
it?
no, Navi are professional throwers. You
Okay.
can't beat Navi at throwing in group stages. Even if you EG are like experienced veteran throwers, but at the end of the day, the best are the best.
But where are you placing your rares? Technically not answering. You're kind of hedging.
I'm kind of hedging because
Yes.
it's hard to tell, but yeah, Navi are professional throwers. You can't beat them, so I'd go for EG here.
Okay. It's interesting you say that because of what happened during the first show that we did and what I said about Navi and all that stuff. I
Yeah,
disagree with you for this one reason. EG isn't the current roster as it's assembled isn't good enough to even on a bad day, I think, compete against Navi collectively. Especially if you go by individual skill and talent, right? So if you take them 1 through 5 and you list all the skill positions, Navi has a check on all of them. The only one that may be
yeah,
doable would be Fear, because a lot of people don't remember that outside of right after TI2, Fear went on a streak where he was dominating S4, Scandal, Dendi, and that was when Empire was like at its best. So Fear mid was crazy good. Fear as a carry is really good all the way back to like TI1 times, and I'm gonna. I mean, even though Pycat was the one that ultimately played carry, Fear has been around so long. He's
yeah.
so
Plenty, yeah.
good, so underrated that even him as on the carry versus a Havos, I still think I will give Havos the edge because Havos is just really talented. Forget the fact that he's over aggressive sometimes in throws, and I know the rhetoric. Listen, nobody jumps on him more than I do. I will just tell you that I think even Fear hasn't had enough ample time to actually one up Havos at that position, and I just think the rest of the roster's a mess. I mean, this is nothing personal. I'm a big fan of the NA Dota. I love Fear. Fear is arguably one of my favorite players in the scene. But even though Navi doesn't do stellar early in tournaments, which I'm really surprised that you remembered, which I have to give you credit for, I don't think EG is the type of team that can even compete on Navi's worst day at the moment as it's currently assembled.
Okay, that makes sense.
So I will still go with Navi, though I 100% agree with why you decided to pick that pick, and I don't feel 100% confident in my pick either. I'm just trying to be rational about this decision because I just don't think EG's good enough to even compete on a bad day, and to me that's like, oh. So
Yeah, you're basically saying EG don't have the skill to throw hard
no,
enough against.
no.
Okay.
So on the next one, this is going to be obviously, in my opinion, the most look forward to matchup of the tournament. It's going to be Alliance versus DK. Courtney, you have the floor.
Well, at first I'd agree with you. At a glance, I'd agree. DK are such a strong team, especially after TI3. They just dominated. They just were unstoppable. People were calling them TI4 favorites already. But then recently, if you look at the stats between Alliance and DK, Alliance have, I think, beaten DK, or especially most recently, beaten. I mean, I know they beat DK 2-0 the other day, and they
Yeah.
just seem to always dominate DK. And I think reason being is Alliance have sort of study DK quite a lot because they know they're strong, especially with Mushi coming in and Burning always being around. So I think Alliance are easily able to draft in a sense where they pick like say Batrider or Clockwork or something very mid to or early to mid game, and they don't let the Burning Anti-Mage or Luna get enough farm to take to late game. Alliance always seem to dominate the mid game and end it there, whereas DK always are pushing for the late game. And I think the same will happen here. It's a best of one. I think Alliance will come out on top, even more so than the 67-32. I think it's more of like an 80-20 to Alliance. So you're definitely getting your res worth betting on Alliance. Yeah.
Oof, I'm gonna have to disagree with you, even though. So I watched the Nexon tournament. I've seen Alliance play DK. I'm understanding the biggest reason and the biggest differences between the two teams. And the biggest difference, for those of you that haven't been able to watch it as extensively, is plain and simple, Lanham and Dai just aren't as good as EGM and Ake collectively. I think the difference between that matchup, if you notice, especially during the Nexon tournament in Korea, was the support play is just better. It's the same reason why I think Alliance and Na'Vi, I actually think Na'Vi is much better than Alliance when they go up head-to-head, because I think the skill positions are in Na'Vi's favor. The support are just slightly in favor of Alliance. In this case, the supports are way in favor of Alliance, and the skill positions are slightly at the moment just in favor of DK. I think the supporting was the biggest difference in the Nexon tournament, and I think that people still have a hard time understanding that it's great to have skill positions like Ice Ice Ice, at the off lane, or pseudo off lane now, because the way the game is played with this 2-1-2 format or the 2 jungle mid 1 format.
You say that, but DK haven't really adjusted to that. DK haven't really adjusted. They're still playing this 4 protect 1 strats.
I agree with you, but they're still beating a lot of the Chinese powerhouse teams. They currently beat LGD the other day 2-0. It's just when you face against Na'Vi and Alliance, you're playing complete teams. There are not very many holes on the teams. And the difference between Na'Vi and Alliance is Na'Vi, their drafts are just what's very unpredictable, and that also really creates this sort of craziness throughout the game that most people can't really understand. But when you're Russian and you're from the CIS region, this is what you play all the time. This is what you're used to, and that uncomfortability really hurts. Alliance just have such a strong nucleus, such a strong team. They play within their system. They play within themselves. And that helps them, take the punches from Na'Vi and persevere. But it also helps them against unorganized teams like DK. I feel like DK are like Real Madrid in a sense. They have a lot of star talent. They have a lot of individual skill. The team chemistry just isn't there. Because even when you look at Burning and Mushi's so aggressive. And Burning lately, even though he's tried to navigate the way through the game as trying to be more an aggressive carry, you've noticed, right, how he still falls back on the farming, burning, I'll come back. And it's different from a team like Sigma, right? So Sigma has a playmaker in Fata, right?
Yeah.
Hashtag old F3, hashtag I love you guys, wish you well. Yet, if you notice that they play very together, and Miguel, Sakshka, they're always coming to participate in these fights with them. In DK, it's different. In DK, you have Lanham and Dai helping Mushi, occasionally Ice Ice Ice, because Ice 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 has been split pushing or trying to push a lot. Or normally, he plays within the team just like he did when he was playing under Zenith. But him and Burning sometimes don't even show up. 3v4, 3v5, 3v3, it's still not good odds when you're being aggressive, diving under towers, and I think that's what's hurting them. I think it's team play. However, look at the odds. Best of one, it goes back. This is the rhetoric we've had this entire show so far. In a best of one, can DK for one game beat Alliance? Absolutely they can. Oh my goodness. If you looked at the Nexon tournament, they were in every game. Some of the issues came at the draft screen.
It's always that with DK though. Like,
Absolutely
I
agree.
want to
Yeah,
go back to what you were saying, where DK are managing to beat the Chinese teams, but that's because the Chinese teams try to challenge DK at their own strats by
sure.
taking to the late game, picking Alchemist, and that DK are always going to beat you at late game strats. But
Yeah,
as you said, Alliance and Navi, they always manage to pick these sort of early mid game strats where they're sort of undercuts. They just
of
go
course.
after the DK support and they just annihilate the DK support, so they're able to finish the game mid, or finish the game like say the 30-minute mark, whereas DK wanted to take it to the 60-minute mark. But I don't think Alliance are going to let them, especially now given Alliance's recent form, given the history between DK and Alliance. I don't think there's any chance DK are going to take this. Even if it goes to 80-20, I would still bet in Alliance.
I mean, I really have to disagree with you there, but
Okay.
I agree with your points. Like, I think you make a lot of sense. I just, when I'm basing these predictions, I don't just go by recent form. I go by things I've seen, the land factor. You have some of the best individual talent in the world assembled in one team. I think in one game, I think they'll do pretty well. So I'll go DK. Moving on to the next one, we have Fnatic versus Pretty Boy Swag. Courtney?
Yeah, I'm sort of using the same logic as I used for Pretty Boy Swag earlier game. And again, like Fnatic, I think I was actually talking about Fnatic where I say they lose against the American teams. I don't know if it's the American playstyle, the American draft, but I think I might again YOLO on PBS here. It obviously depends how PBS do against Liquid, but considering Fnatic's recent form against the American teams, if the odds stay like this, I might end up YOLOing even 4 on PBS here. Given PBS, even if PBS lose against Liquid, if it's a fairly close game, I would definitely favor PBS in the next game if the odds stay at this rate
Yeah.
at 20%. Just given that Fnatic lose to the American teams.
Oh, I hate you so much. That was going to be my thing. So Fnatic just recently beat Alliance, and they're very good. And I think Fnatic is a way better team than PBS. But the problem I think with Fnatic, and I don't know this for sure, this is just conjecture. I don't think they study the American teams very much, and I think that's where they come into problems.
It's just not their focus. They focus
Yeah,
on the European scene.
exactly. Because Liquid recently has beaten them. 4FC have beat, although 4FC isn't North American. I just consider.
These tier 2 teams.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wasn't gonna. Yes, and then
You weren't
right,
gonna
so
say that.
they lost to EG. Yeah, I would say that this is probably one of the more interesting matchups in terms of favorites. I would bet against the favorite here. I would,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't really worry as much, especially considering though. Let's keep it to a fact, or let's keep it to account. Fnatic is one of the most tried and tested LAN teams in gaming, period. This roster has been together multiple games. So, however, I just think that they just have a high propensity to lose to North American teams, and Pretty Boy Swag isn't a team I think they would have a lot of tape on, do a lot of research on. So I would tend to agree with you on this. I would definitely prop bet it and easily not worry about it. So, very interesting that this is the matchup in which we have the most agreement. So moving on to the next one, Navi versus Sigma International.
Yeah, this is going to be an interesting game, I think. Just because using my logic before, where Navi like to troll around in group stages, Segments are going to come here wanting to get some momentum up. They know if they want to win this thing, they're obviously going to have to be good enough to beat the likes of Navi and Alliance. So Segments aren't going to be messing around at all. They're going to want to bring out their best in the beginning, especially since it's against Navi,
Of course.
So although I honestly think Navi are obviously at least 2 times better than Sigmund statistically.
Yeah.
I think the fact that Navi might still be trolling around at this stage and Sigmund are going to be playing like try-hard strats. If the odds... okay, put it this way. If the odds go below 30%, I'll be betting on Sigmund. But as they stand now, it's 32, so I'm going to go for Navi. But if they go below 30, I'm going to bet on Sigmund.
Against my better judgment, I'm going to go I'm going to go with Sigma Int. Not really because of obviously history and the affinity us at F3 have for them. What I will tell you though is, as much as sometimes I hate Sebastian's drafting. Sorry, buddy. I love you a long time, but the truth is, him and Mania are just very predictable coming out of the draft. You know they're going to want to go after Mirana. You know they're going to want to get Bane or Puck for Fatah, right? Like, they're very predictable.
Yeah.
Na'Vi, very unpredictable. So you have that classic matchup, right? Like organization versus free-flowing activity.
Yeah.
However, best of one, I have to be honest with you. Even though Dendi beat Fatah in the 1v1 mid at TI3, I think everybody at this point is realizing, as great as Dendi is, and I'm not saying that Fatah is just as good as Dendi, but if Fatah gets a favorable matchup, Dendi, he can't just, by sheer skill, make up the difference. Fatah will get the better of him if they draft an advantage in that mid lane. And I don't need to say any more about how good Fatah is in creating and playmaking and all that stuff. I used to always say for years, this is going into TI2 when Mushi was with Orange, that the Mushi factor is way strong. Over the last few months, even despite his hurt hand, especially coming out of TI3, Fatah is just a monster. I think this is the best of one matchup that I would be most afraid of if I was Na'Vi, of any team, including Alliance, only because they're so Sigma It plays so much within their own system. They play so safe that if you start tower diving and you start getting caught, and if Fatah and Miguel's going off, because Miguel I think is one of the more underrated offlane players because I think he's just so annoying. And I think he doesn't get enough credit for being as annoying. So I agree with you. I love these odds for Sigma. I think Na'Vi, although I don't think Na'Vi is going to screw it up against EG, I can see Na'Vi screwing it up against Sigma, especially in a best of one, only because they have a higher propensity in early stages of tournaments, like you said, to give away games. And I think they're going to give away this game, and I don't think there's anything they can do about it.
I was going to say, just to summarize, basically a Sigma Ints are going to be such a focused, dedicated, concentrated team, where Na'Vi are probably still going to be trying to test the waters, sort of messing around, and I think Sigma Ints are going to take advantage of that, and maybe end out on top.
But they also have the playmakers. Let's not forget, Miggy and Fatah are good individually skilled players that they can still create and control the game with a little bit of a lead, and I think when you wrap all that together, I think it's going to be a really good matchup. The next one is DK and Liquid. I'm very curious to hear what you're going to say about this one, because the odds are pretty close, in my opinion.
Well, actually, strangely enough, this is one of the games that I don't know. I don't have much to say, considering it might be quite late. I think that each team are going to have to play it already 2 or 3 times. And yeah, these odds are really, really close, which I don't really think is surprising. I think people are realizing that these best of ones, maybe DK, aren't as strong as they should be in best of threes, and especially with the recent patch, I think it really nerfed DK's playstyle, which is why I think the odds are so close. But I think my judgment on this really comes down to how DK do against Alliance. If DK even come close to beating Alliance or beating Alliance, I'll bet for them, but other than that, I'll probably go for Liquid just purely based on these odds. I think Liquid might be a safer bet.
Wow, that's interesting. If I could push, I would push here. Although obviously you cannot.
As in play style, you'd push as Liquid or what?
No. Like I'll just get out of this. I'll just push it. I'll just get the fuck out. I think the biggest issue I have with DK is their inconsistency, which you and I have discussed already ad nauseum. I will say that I think Bulba is good enough to make Ice and his mid-game strength neutralize. I don't think TC is on the same level as Burning. I definitely don't think the mid matchup is favorable towards Liquid. So I will probably still go for DK. And my analysis for this would be using skill positions to determine how I feel. And I feel like across the board, I feel DK has a check by every skill position 1 through 5. I think maybe the 4 might be the only one, but so I'm gonna go with DK only on the fact that I think they're too individually skilled to lose to a team like Liquid. As good as I think Liquid is, and as strong as I think Liquid's team chemistry at the moment seems to be, because they've been playing really good tournaments. They've beaten the likes of Navi and Fnatic recently and all that stuff. So I'm actually going to go with DK on this, though I don't feel comfortable about it. And I would consider anybody that is on the fence to not bet this game. I think this is a game you want to stay away from because there are too many variables in this, and I think it's too difficult to actually come to a reasonable conclusion without having seen the games, right? Like, just like you mentioned, if you see DK play well against Alliance, then you would probably change your bet. So I think this is one people should stay away from, in my opinion. So, but if I had to choose, I would definitely go DK. The next game is going to be EG versus Fnatic EU, and this game is a really interesting one. It's actually pretty close, too. It's almost 60-40.
Yeah. I think these odds should be swapped, to be honest. I think it should be 60-40 to EG. I was just quickly looking now at their recent history. And most recently, EG beats Fnatic 1-0, obviously a best of one. And then Fnatic managed to beat EG 2-1 and then EG 2-0. So they're sort of chopping and changing. Like, they sort of evenly matched in their recent history. But most recently being EG winning 1-0, yeah. So I think these odds should be swapped around, and we discussed earlier about Fnatic's capability to choke against the American teams. So yeah, I would definitely be getting my res worth if I bet on EG on this game, considering I think it should be 60% for EG. So I think, yeah, for this game, I'll be betting definitely 4 res for EG.
I don't know if I can disagree with you. No, I don't. I just, I think the rational side of me is like, but the truth is, Fnatic, so Fnatic strength at the moment, so if you're comparing Era and Fear, maybe Fear is slightly better in terms of skill, but maybe not overall in the position. But the truth is, Fnatic is better in the early game, the mid game, the late game, in team fights, supporting transitions, off-lane execution.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's too difficult for me to think. No, well, I mean, the truth is, there are no metric other than, and this is a good segue and shameless plug, that Dota.com, what Martin does, you can see that the analytics actually do say that Fnatic is a much better team, and considering the recent team play, like these odds, I think Fnatic EU 60-40 against anybody, always go the 40, only because it's nothing personal against Fnatic. It's just they're very inconsistent, and inconsistent teams have a high tendency to lose games that they shouldn't lose. And because of that, I say, hey, look, this is a sleeper game, right? Like, this is a game that Fnatic should have in the bag, and they're not going to have in the bag. Why? Because, it's late, the lands, insert whatever excuse or whatever you want to put in there. But it's just something about EG. I just cannot vote or bet on EG under any circumstance. The odds, I agree with you, favor EG. I think everything you said had 100% merit and is a very articulate and smart response to this sort of bet. I'm going to have to go with Fnatic EU just on the premise that I think EG just isn't as good a team to even bet on under any circumstance at the moment. Until they prove otherwise, I just have to stay away.
So wait, what's your final bet?
Oh, no, Fnatic. Fnatic.
Okay, so you're betting for Fnatic.
Yeah, I can't bet for EG, even though I feel like everything you said makes a lot of sense. Just, I don't know. Something in me is just I can't.
This is kind of interesting, considering there's two of us, and we generally contrasting. We sort of, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see who people agree with.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. The final game of the night is going to be Sigma and Speed. Courtney, what you thinking, Big Daddy?
This is going to be one of my better games to watch, I think, or at least more enjoyable games to watch. Yes. It's going to be the end of the night, the last game, I think. I don't know if there's going to be more games after this, but yeah, both these teams, I think, I don't know how to say this. I think each team thinks they're better than the counterpart. Segment thinks they're better than Speed. Speed thinks they're better than Segment. So they're both going to be playing very aggressively, and I think this is going to be like a chaotic game with, like, say, 80 kills or something ridiculous like that. As for who I'm going to bet for, I'll probably look, considering it's the last game, I'll look at the history of their previous games. If Sigmarin beat Navi or come close, then I'll bet for Sigmarin's. And who was Speed Gaming? Oh, Speed Gaming were going against Alliance. So I'll just be watching those two games fairly close. Alliance versus Speed and Navi versus Sigmarin's. And I'll probably judge it on that. Well, as I was saying, I judge it on that, but if I had to judge it now, I would probably go for Speed Gaming. I think they're a bit more reliable, and I think the odds should be, as it stands now, probably 70-30, where they're 60-40 sort of. So definitely Speed Gaming, as it stands now.
Yeah. So to give all you guys a reference point, so coming out of TI3 when we formed that makeshift roster for a second, when Speed were Kaipi, we constantly scrimmed against them. And this current roster, as it's assembled, had a crazy good record. I'm talking like 7-2 in scrims and games since we've seen them, right? It was absurd. So when we played in European servers, Sigma generally won. When we played on NA servers, it was 50-50. So using all that information, knowing that we have a 42% cut here, I think I'm going to go with Sigma, and I'm going to go with Sigma based on history, the fact that Bone 7's out, and more inside information on this topic. Bone 7 was the biggest thorn in our spine because, with all due respect to Miggy, he got more out of the off lane generally most times than Miguel did against my boy Owie. Oh my goodness, I had a brain fart there. Sorry. So if you want to keep all that in perspective, I think. These two teams have a lot of history. You are 100% right on your notion that both teams think they're better than each other, though. I think Speed right now are the better roster. I think they're also the more skilled roster. If we're being honest and completely transparent here, I think they're the more individually skilled roster. I just think they have advantages, natural advantages like mid lane. And I'm gonna go with Sigma. I'm gonna throw it on the Fata factor and the history within the two teams. And in a best of one, it's gonna really come down to the draft. But
yeah. But then it's too late to change your bet.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be this is gonna be a fun game to watch. And I think it's gonna be a good game. I'm gonna go 42. I'm gonna take Sigma, and I'm gonna throw it on the Fata factor. His hand's feeling a little bit better. I don't know if you're aware, but he broke his hand for a little bit, or he had like
I heard something.
So his hand's feeling better. I think Speed are going to be really good in this tournament, though. I don't know, man. I'm torn, but I think officially I'm going to go Sigma in. Knowing all that, though, knowing all that information, do you change your bet? Do you have like a little? No.
I knew all of that. The only thing I sort of didn't take into account was the Arteezy substitutes, which I didn't really know about until now. But yeah, even still, I would still bet for Speed Gaming. I mean, Arteezy is definitely a very good player, almost on par or better than whoever's replacing Burn 7. I know Burn 7 is extremely strong, but I think Arteezy is a very capable substitute. So I don't think much changes, and I think the Speed Gaming players are familiar with Arteezy and its playstyle, so they'll be able to easily adjust to it. There's not going to be huge changes where it's a stranger coming in sub. But yeah, I'll still go for Speed Gaming.
Our picks generally don't matter in the grand scheme of things. We're just helping you guys, of course, come to conclusions and make decisions based on what you want to do with your own rares. What I will what I will enlighten everybody else on is, although I have a high affinity for Sigma, I will tell you that if they do not play well against Na'Vi, and I mean they get crushed by Na'Vi, their morale quickly crumbles. So if that game by Na'Vi is a complete rout, I think it's in your best interest to bet on Speed. But if it's going to be 75-25, even if you win, you may not get anything, I don't think it's worth it. So that is one caveat I have to throw in there, because we're of course trying to help you guys progress into the betting scene and all that good stuff. So unfortunately, we didn't have the band all together here, but just know that we will be back. We will be better than ever when everybody's around, and we have a new addition. Martin from thatdota.com, he'll be providing numerical analysis and analytics on all these games, and he'll make his own decisions based on the numbers and the saber metrics of Dota 2. Courtney, it was fun.
Yeah.
I'm glad we got to chill again. It's been a little bit, but don't worry, we'll get back into it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. So on behalf of myself and the Dota 2 Lounge, and of course Courtney, we'll be signing off. I hope you guys enjoy all this. We will be keeping, by the way, we will be keeping record of all our predictions, so you'll be able to know which one of us suck and which one of us don't. So
We'll get a little
yeah,
like database going, or a little.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a good one. And like I said, it's been a pleasure. Happy rare hunting.
All right. Cheers.